Welcome to From Caving In to Crushing It, the podcast for those who find themselves immersed in adversity and choose to write their story instead of having others write it for them. I'm Drew Duraney, and I'm your host. Richard Schreiber, so good to see you, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Drew. It's great to be here.
So it's a beautiful day outside,
It
and it's cool
is.
that you're my first call of the day. Um, First thing I want to do is I always thank the person or people who introduced me to my guests, because there's always a reason why people think, hey, this would be a good idea to invite Richard and, introduce Richard and Drew. And I want to thank initially Karen Shaw, a couple years ago, introduced us, and relatively recently Priscilla Lito. So
Mm,
thank you so much, you two, Karen and Priscilla, for introducing me to Richard. We have a beginning of a really cool relationship here. So,
yeah.
why did I ask Richard to be on this show? Richard, I asked you because, and we got to get to know each other. We have a lot in common. Initially, I always speak on this show about how when we're younger, we're taught that life is linear. We're told, and it's not malicious, that if we do the right things, A plus B plus C in a straight line, D is going to happen. And for the most part, for us, life is linear until it's not. An external circumstance inevitably gets in our way and kind of derails our straight path in life to a more circuitous one. And there's always a defining moment that we finally wake up and realize we have more control than we do. It's my firm belief that there's three different types of men out there. You have man number one, who's got a ton of blind spots. He's on autopilot. He just does what he does because that's the way the world is pushing him. And he doesn't see anything in front of him. And he just lives that life that's really non-impactful. And then there's man number two. He's got a heightened self-awareness. He notices that adversity that's hitting him, yet that adversity is happening to him. He's a victim. It's everybody else's fault. He's got no control on the path of his life, and he just lets life push him where it goes. And on his deathbed, man, does he have a ton of regrets. We don't want to be like that. On this show, I welcome on man number three. Richard's man number three. Man number three has an intense self-awareness, and when adversity hits, he gets to a point where he's like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. This is not a barrier. I'm not a victim. This adversity is a challenge. It's an opportunity for me to become
Mm.
stronger and take it on head on. And I'm going to do that. And on the other side, I become a stronger man. With that, Richard, I'd love for you to reach back as far as you need to. When you had that defining moment, whether it was the tap on the shoulder, the whisper in the ear, or like I needed, my 2x4 upside my head, to shift you from whatever man you were to that man number three, and how it's changed you and what you're doing now personally and professionally.
Well, I don't know if there's any one situation, Drew. I'm a baby boomer. I've been hit over the head with a 2x4 a number of times. My
Right.
parents used to say, "I'll beat it into you one way or the other." Um, but it's interesting. I wonder if we all don't kind of cycle from man number one to two to three, because that certainly is the case. When I was dumb in my 20s and 30s, I was definitely kind of a wayward type. I had skills and talents and abilities, but wasn't really focused too well. And we'll talk about how to recommend getting around that in today's society. I don't think, us baby boomers, there wasn't that kind of pressure to really toe the line as there is today. There's just so much influence in media and AI and everything else going on out there that there's this heightened awareness
Right.
of our surroundings. But there was a period in life where, I was man number two. I had a lot of success in my consulting practice in my 40s and 50s, and then all of a sudden, boom, I hit a brick wall. Um, the industries I worked in got terribly disrupted by, disruptive factors like Uber and Lyft and Airbnb and all these so-called gens, all these new software platforms that came out that just totally disrupted traditional stuff. And yeah, for a while I was playing the blame game. God was punishing me and all this and that. And I've been a Christian for decades, but didn't realize and didn't. You talk about blind spots.
Yeah.
Wow. we all have blind spots. It's what we don't know, we don't know. Um, but there have been a couple of watershed moments that really, I think, turned it around for me. One of them relates to my daughter, who was diagnosed at age 7 with autism. And our journey around finding her the right care started out as most parents. It was getting over the shock of the diagnosis, and we were actually forced to have her evaluated because her school, the Board of Ed, sent us home a letter that basically said, you need to get your child evaluated.
Okay.
She's disruptive in class. In retrospect, while we were outraged at getting this cold letter from the school, we remembered now that it was her first grade teacher who had a PhD in special needs that really recognized in our daughter that, she was different.
Okay.
So we got her evaluated, and we kind of got drawn into what I now know as the mainstream autism services,
Right.
which is typically, as you know, Drew, pharmaceutical aid.
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. Yep.
Our daughter was on Adderall for 3 years. We signed her up for ABA services, applied behavioral analysis services. Had some very mixed experiences with that. It's, ABA services, unfortunately, if they're not really customized for your child, is more about trying to convert an autistic child's behavior to neurotypical.
Yes, yes.
But what we fail to realize is that you're asking a child to change its identity,
Yes.
change their identity of who they are to behave and act like someone they're not.
Exactly.
And that's a pretty awful message when you think about it. So, and I mentioned the watershed moment was when our daughter graduated from elementary school. She was 10. I went there to pick her up. I was a stay-at-home dad, so I was generally the caregiver. And I saw her standing off to herself. She was crying. And my daughter never cries. It was the last day of elementary school graduation. Should have been a happy time. Yeah. Kids are signing yearbooks, teachers are hugging kids and that sort of thing. And my daughter's by herself. And I walked over to her and I leaned down next to her and I said, Katerina, what's wrong? And she said, Daddy, for 6 years at this school, nobody wanted to be my friend. And whoa, those are words a father never wants to hear. No. And I'll take them to the grave. Yeah. But it was a wake-up call, Drew, to me and my wife, that what we were doing wasn't working. And we took the call. We heeded the call. We took our daughter off Adderall. She actually asked us to. We found a combination of essential oils. My wife got specifically expert in essential oils. Became an agent with a company called doTERRA, who have fantastic oils that come from South America. They're organic, and they happen to have a specific line that is for kids with ADHD and autism.
Did not know that.
So she's been on this combination of oils now for the better part of a decade, and it's really helped her regulate a number of her characteristics. But that was a moment that really kind of shook me to the core and made me realize that, I was checking all the boxes, Drew, as a parent, you think you're doing everything you can. But also, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist type, but, in the modern medical space, you really have to be your own practitioner. You can't just go with the flow. You can't just go with what modern medicine tells you or people in the medical industry, especially with autism care, because it's still misdiagnosed and mistreated, miscategorized as a disability when it's not. It's a neurological condition. Absolutely. One that we all have. We are all unique in our neurological composition, or our neural net. Yeah. We're all snowflakes. We're all on the spectrum to some degree. Yep. Absolutely. And, we need to really look at autism as we're just different. not we, but those who are on the
Yes,
spectrum is,
yes.
they're just different. In fact, I dislike using the term special needs. I
I don't
use
like that too.
different
Yeah.
needs.
Yeah.
And
Words do matter, and the labels that are placed on individuals who are atypical um, is harmful, right? It
yeah,
labels state that there's limitations, and
labels and people with autism today. I was speaking with a dear friend who travels the world. She just came back from Dubai
yeah,
and Ukraine, where she speaks out on autism care. And around the rest of the world, there are countries, even first world countries, where people with autism have to be kept quiet behind closed doors because it's just not culturally acceptable to have your child be outwardly on the spectrum. And hopefully organizations like my friends is trying to change the perception of people with autism. One of the things I've heard, Drew, is that our different need kids, our autistic kids, they are the chosen ones. They are the ones who think outside the box. They're the ones who, think about all the wonderful engineering medical marvels that have happened. Thomas Edison, Bill Gates, Elon Musk,
yeah,
you know, um, Albert Einstein,
yeah,
Thomas Edison. You know what? They all had autism.
absolutely, yeah,
Without them, we wouldn't be the country we are.
very true,
And
very
now
true.
multiply that about all those people out there and all the talent and all the abilities that they have that are just, we're throwing it away.
Yeah, I agree
We're
with you. Yeah, there's many. I noticed that there's many entrepreneurs who are on the autistic spectrum, because the mainstream corporate world doesn't really provide what's necessary for people who are atypical like that, and they have unique capabilities and ideas, and they flourish on the entrepreneur space. So,
right. Where they can think outside the box. I remember my daughter's particularly good in math.
mhm,
And when she was doing the Common Core thing, where not only do you have to get the right answer, but you have to show how to get it,
mhm,
you know,
yeah,
she would find her own way to get to the answer because she's brilliant. She
yeah,
just is so unconventional, and they would look at how she arrived at the answer and say, "Wow, this is pretty cool."
absolutely, yeah. And that's a good point, because at a growing age, at the age your daughter was, having that first grade teacher who had the wisdom and the experience and the knowledge of for autism, that was a blessing.
It really was.
Yeah, and you don't realize it at the time, like you said. You're like offended because of the coldness of the letter. I would have been the same way.
Yeah.
But thank God for that individual who noticed, and not
Yes.
just noticed, did something about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And subsequently, we got over the outrage, and I had a very nice conversation with her, and I told her exactly that. That we're a Christian family. We were a little taken aback by the letter, and we understand that's how it goes, but we're so grateful to you for being the nudge to get us, because yeah, we knew our daughter was different early on. She used to put on a CD when she was an 18-month-old toddler,
Yeah,
and she would spin around like a top. And after a while, we noticed, wow, she's not getting dizzy.
right.
What is that? Yeah, only to find out later on that that was a direct indicator. What did we know at the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was 17 years
How old's
ago.
your daughter now?
She'll be 19 in about 6 weeks.
Oh, that's
Freshman in college. Yeah.
yeah. Now, is she able now to articulate why she would spin? Was it helpful? Because there's a reason why I'm asking this. I'll let you know. It's about my son, but was there?
No, I don't know that she would know or even remember, because it
Yeah.
was mostly when she was about a toddler.
Okay.
But she still has energy spurts now where she'll go running back and forth in the apartment at like 1 in the morning, and we have to say, "Whoa, whoa, time to take some oils and chill out for the rest of the
I
night."
love it. Yeah, no, because my son's 23 now, and he's on the spectrum. And when he was younger, when you could tell he was, I don't know, he was thinking, but we didn't realize at the time, he would run from corner to corner in the room.
Mm.
And as he got older, when he was starting to be able to articulate emotions or behaviors, because he was the one who always got in trouble in school because they would say, "Why did you do that?" And he would say, "I don't know." And he really meant it. He
Right.
didn't know why.
Yeah.
And he was marked as a troublemaker, right? But when I asked him when he got older about the what running, he goes, "Dad, when I need to be running like that, I think better when
Yeah.
I'm running back and forth rather than just sitting still. Because when I sit still, my mind takes me to places I don't want to go." Fascinating as heck to me. So that's why I asked. I wondered if your daughter knew because when you're a young parent, and this is 23 years ago, I had no idea. I just thought he had energy. You don't know what you don't know, right? And if there's no one out there
Right.
to help
Yeah.
you with it, we didn't know where to go. So anyway, I sidetracked, but I mean, I was just curious.
Yeah. No, it's I think you're right. It's they physical activity like that is a good outlet for them.
Mhm.
Obviously they spin around those different things, and there's different ways that they can help themselves concentrate. My daughter used to doodle a lot, and she's an artist,
Yeah.
but it all started when she was much younger,
Okay.
where she would doodle in class, and oftentimes the teachers would get annoyed by it. And every time they called her out, of course, she was totally paying attention and always got the right answer.
Yeah.
But it kind of flummoxed them. And, we had to kind of say, well, for her, it's almost paradoxical.
Mhm.
If she divides her concentration by doodling and focusing on what you're doing, she's actually able to be better
Okay.
than if she was just singularly focusing on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's paradoxical.
Yeah.
But, my daughter has that unique ability.
Hmm.
But sometimes she gets so overly engrossed that she needs to divert some of her attention on some sidelight
Right.
so that she's able to be present to hear what she should be hearing.
Right. Absolutely.
So, but
Well,
again,
thank
it's
God
it's
she's
something totally anathema to you and I.
right. Absolutely. Thank God she's thriving now. 19. Where's she going to school?
She goes to Borough Manhattan Community College,
Okay.
and
Great.
she's doing great. She actually was elected to the Phi Theta Kappa,
Okay.
um, uh, which is I guess a
Honor
top
society.
tier yeah,
Gotcha.
educational group based on your
Wonderful.
grades.
Yeah.
So
Good for her. Good for her.
yeah.
So this wake up call, and I notice, and for those of you watching on YouTube, I notice your backdrop. Sure, it says autism. Uh, can you, what were you doing prior professionally? Because you had mentioned disruptors in software with Uber and all that. What were you
Mhm.
doing? Because I know now you're AI and an IT guy. So tell
Yeah.
the audience what you were doing, and then where you are now and how your whole transformation occurred.
Yeah, I started in technology, kind of got into it organically, or like most of us, by accident.
Yeah.
My degree is in college was actually in journalism.
Oh, wow.
Um, it still serves me because I blog, pretty proficiently now, and I think getting a degree in journalism when I did, 50 years ago, not 50, no, not date myself too badly, but yeah, 40 odd years ago,
Yeah.
I studied the Walter Cronkites, the Dan Rathers, the Huntley Brinkley,
Right.
back when journalism, obviously had a different resonance than it does today. It's become business today. It's
Yeah.
become more of a propaganda
Yeah.
for either political party, and
Yeah.
and really just more predicated on getting eyeballs and headlines and making money. And it just doesn't serve the people, and that's why so many people are down on the media. It's because they kind of deserve it.
Yeah.
But back when I was growing up, that was my interest and thrust. But most of us fall into doing other things. So I started in operations, worked for a company, and then spun that off and formed a new company that I was doing for myself.
Oh, wow.
We needed software to run the company, so I joined forces with a brilliant programmer from Bell Labs. Wow, I'm dating myself.
I remember
So,
you telling me.
so we wrote about 4 software systems, and then eventually I got headhunted to do a Y2K project for Goldman Sachs.
Wow.
It was so successful, they invited us back to Weblify it 5 years later, and that kind of kickstarted a whole line of corporate travel booking and expense management systems. And for a while in New York City, for about 10 years, we were the largest shareholder of that. We had many of the major iBanks and law firms on our platform. And yeah, but towards the middle of the decade, that's when things kind of changed. And, you know, now with AI, obviously, disruption is even at a faster clip than ever before.
But with that disruption of AI, you're now big into AI. Can you
Yes.
tell me how knowledgeable you were when you first heard about it, and what made you be like an early acceptor of it, and now somebody who's building some expertise?
Yeah, well, I started really, I was attracted to it, like many of us, dating back to November 2022 when ChatGPT 3.0 was released.
Mhm.
And I had a friend who was a brilliant guy named Peter Swain who runs, who had, he's big in the Tony Robbins world and had won Business Mastery 3 times in a row. Amazing, brilliant guy, digital marketer. And he formed a mastermind around AI. And I joined that almost immediately and been there now for 2.5 years. Really learning how to use AI effectively on so many levels. AI, first and foremost, should be regarded as a top-tier strategic tool to level up your business in so many ways in your personal life. It's just, but it takes discipline and it takes a lot of knowledge and use to refine it to get the value back that you really want. There's no shortcuts. It's really a tremendous commitment. And there's an awful lot of which drew me to, perhaps the book that you're mentioning behind me, Autism Care Revolution, which a best-selling book. It came out last year. I wrote an entire chapter on how AI is leveling up autism care services, and about to write a blog post about the top 10 AI products and services that really further and help people with autism.
Wonderful.
It's making, autism, AI is just, it has such a possibility, Drew, and such a capability to really level up things in healthcare and especially in special needs. It's really exciting.
One of those things that in the right hands, it's going to be phenomenal. In the wrong hands, it could be dangerous.
Yeah, and I'm with an organization that's trying to make sure that AI is used integrally, responsibly, and with intention. And being a born-again Christian, I actually wrote a book that kind of defines, or it's a call to action really for people in technology and people in leadership to use AI responsibly. In the corporate world, we unfortunately hear about how many jobs are going to get replaced and lost. And, we've heard Walmart's already replacing 50,000 floor cleaner jobs with AI robots and stuff like that. And that's unfortunate. But we should be thinking more about using AI to level up what we're doing with our current employees and people, and not looking to replace them. So
it should be, best way to use it is a complement, not as a replacement.
Yeah, but people, there's a lot of resistance to AI, and it's here. It's definitely going to change the world, and all of us would be in a better position if we get in front of it and learn and teach ourselves how to use it, how to do what we do best better using AI. Because there's going to be a lot of changes, and unfortunately, given the way corporate America is focused on the next earnings period, there will be job losses, unfortunately. But hopefully, those folks can be retrained for other things.
Right. I mean, there is a lot out there, and there are people in the workforce who go into it for different reasons, and there's passion they have that they're not really focusing on. So hopefully, people can turn their passion into something they could make a living on in the entrepreneurship world. I mean, there's so much value in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So tell me about, I know you are in the nonprofit sector. That's, and obviously the autism nonprofit sector. Can you please talk about your foundation?
Yeah, so our foundation was started 2023. It's the Autism Innovation Community Foundation, and it's kind of it became a spin-off of we created a local community group here in New York around 2018 called the NYC Autism Community. And
Okay.
before COVID, we used to have small scale events where we invite parents to bring their kids in the spectrum and, play Legos and watch movies and, just hang out. And, it was an opportunity for the parents to come together and kind of get out of themselves because, and our moniker became is we are not alone because
Mhm.
it's just so important that
Yeah,
we get out of our own heads and our own space and
very true.
talk to other parents and have our children relate and play with other kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and then we had an event here in New York City in 2022, the um Autism Tech Innovation and Career Expo. We had hundreds of people that attended to that. That was kind of ultimately what our foundation aspires to do, is to put on events. We've been doing some smaller events with Priscilla,
Yeah.
a dear friend, and Mission Kid Success, which does such amazing work,
Yes.
and a friend, Steve Cohen, who's a autistic comedian. So we put on several shows locally in the area,
Right.
promoting comedy and its wonderful role, and not just with people with autism, but all of us really.
All of us, we need
You
the
know,
laughter.
to laugh, and
Yeah.
a laugh really hits us well and gets that good energy going. So um yeah, our foundation is really about kind of an extension of what I wrote in the book.
Yeah.
It's encouraging parents to, you know, adopt the right mind frame. You mentioned earlier, throw away the blame game,
Mhm.
step into, every child is a gift, but our children, I know sometimes it's hard to hear this, they're beyond gifts. I've learned more from my daughter than any other human being on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very humbling because as a baby boomer dad, I had to pivot quite a bit away from how I was raised
Right.
to really understand and raise my daughter.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Since I've, you know, really been focusing on what my son needs, I mean, really diving deep. I joined a couple, Facebook groups on autism, one's autism dads. And it's funny how, well, not really funny, but some of the parents who have children who are nonverbal, or much more challenging than the I hate to say higher functioning, but I guess what's the term, that the higher on the different on the spectrum? I don't know, what do they even use?
Highly functional, I think, is
Yeah,
yeah, that's what they use.
that's where my son is. That's where your daughter is. But some of the comments from people who don't understand autism just think of it as the higher functioning ones like your daughter and mine, but these other dads who have children who are on the other side of the spectrum, they're challenged feeling like it's a gift. And so to help them find the strengths in their child and celebrate those strengths. But I feel for those parents who where their child will not be able to speak and do certain things and
Well, which one should never give up.
that's the thing, never give up, because that gives limitations. So I want to
Yeah.
help those caregivers realize that there is hope for the future. We're working on it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things our foundation does, Drew, is we
Yeah.
do survey, as I mentioned, we recommend essential oils.
Mhm.
My wife, by full disclosure, being a distributor,
Yeah.
but we also promote several supplement products. One of
Mhm.
one of them is called LifeVantage, a product called Tri-Synergizer,
Okay.
which helps with oxygenated stress and mitochondrial decay
Okay.
and a whole bunch of uh, characteristics that tend to affect people with autism.
You know,
And our most
yeah, I'm glad you're talking about that, because we need to hear more about some alternative um, tools to help our children, aside from the pharmaceuticals. It's way too easy for the industry to just throw drugs at people. It's a lot more work to
Yeah.
dive deep to find out what the root cause is for the behavior. And I love that you and your wife are involved with and it's funny, they're not really alternative medicine. That medicine's been around for a lot longer than the pharmaceuticals.
Oh, let me tell you,
As far as, you know what I
my
mean?
wife's my wife's mom is from Peru, and they have over 100 plants in Peru that
Yeah,
they use for medicinal purposes.
right.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, that's not
it's
alternative medicine. Basically, it was the marketing
no,
in our country with the pharmaceuticals that started marketing,
yeah.
the long time medicines as alternative, which is not the case. Pharmaceuticals
Well,
are the alternative medicine as far as I'm concerned.
the challenge with pharmaceuticals, Drew, is looking back, when our daughter was like from 10 to 12 when she was on Adderall during that span is, the FDA has certain obviously requirements to study what the side effects are on
Yeah,
drugs entering the marketplace.
sure.
And, they obviously keep tabs on fatalities and all kinds of, horrendous side effects, but
Right.
they don't really have studies on, okay, we gave our kid Adderall at age 10 for 3 years. What does that mean to her brain when
Yeah.
she's 30, when she's
Yes.
40, when
Right.
she's
Yeah.
50?
Hmm.
There's no such studies out
No,
there.
there aren't studies. Long-term studies are
And
science.
that we should be thinking about
Yeah.
before we consider drugging our kids.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's why we pivoted away. And
Mm.
the last product I wanted to mention is a product called STEM Active. You mentioned
Mm.
nonverbal
Yeah.
autistic kids, but
Yeah.
STEM Active is a product that just came out from a company called Healthy Homes.
Okay.
Again, full disclosure,
Yeah.
we advocate for this product and support it. Um, it's made up of, I think, 8 or 9 individual ingredients that are all organic that trigger the generation of stem cells in the body through a natural process.
Okay.
And there have been studies that have shown that it's helped kids who are nonverbal on the spectrum
Okay.
actually break through and begin to become verbal.
Well, I gotta
Um,
talk to you offline about that because I have a neighbor down the street who's got a daughter who's nonverbal.
yeah.
She's around 10
So
years
yeah,
old. Wonderful young lady. Yeah. Okay.
there's actually been instances where in groups where it's actually proved beneficial and in general for people with autism,
Yeah.
stem cells is a really good it's kind of the wild card for regenerating and bettering the body in general, more
Sure.
so than anything else.
So the
But
product
now
you're talking about with the stem, is it a patch? Is it liquid? Is it a pill?
it
How does
comes
it
in
apply?
either a gel or in capsules.
So I love that because the gel would go right into the bloodstream and
And it's
avoid
easier for kids
avoid
than
the
having
gut,
to
and it's
swallow
easier,
pills.
yeah,
Yeah.
versus the going into the gut and being digested. All right, so we'll talk because when I say offline, I'll learn more and I'll let the public know. But that kind of thing. I want to learn more, and I want to learn more
Yeah,
from my friend down the street. Um, do you have something coming up? Anything special you want to talk about that you're working on that you'd like more people to know about?
well, we probably have another event coming up in the fall.
Okay,
Um, I may have a couple events coming up in the fall. One possibly on the West Coast with some friends.
okay,
I also volunteer on the board of advisors for um, the Autism Research Project based in California.
great,
Some wonderful people who are looking to create
right,
a go-to platform for people to find autism resources around the world. So they're
beautiful.
just getting started, and that's obviously a need that's really
Yes, absolutely.
necessary. Yeah, Priscilla and and we'll probably figure out something to do in the fall as well, working together. Always great to support her wonderful charity and all that she does.
Yeah. Yeah,
She's,
actually, I went to Priscilla had the second annual
mm,
Sip and Chill for Mission Kids Success on
yeah.
Thursday. So I got to
Unfortunately, we
go.
were chilling in bed with the flu, but
I know. I'm glad you're
we'll
feeling better.
definitely
Jeez.
send some love and some dollars
Yeah.
Priscilla's way
Yeah,
for
but
such a
it
good
was a
cause.
beautiful, beautiful event for a great cause.
Mm.
Um, I could talk to you all day, Richard, but the audience certainly has captured the essence of Richard Schreiber. So, guys, you're going to want to get in touch with Richard, especially if you have a child on the autism spectrum. Richard, if you're local on the Northeast, um, Richard works with the New York City Autism Community. That's what he mentioned. He has a Facebook group. So go on to Facebook, look for NYC Autism Community to join that. And if you want to do stuff in person, keep in touch with Richard. Other ways to reach out to him is via email, and I am going to look down at my paper because it's probably the longest email I've seen. And it's R Schreiber, RSCHREIBER at, and here's the long stuff. It's Autism Innovation Community Foundation. Those 4 words together. Autism Innovation Community Foundation.org. And that will be, I will also put that in the show notes if that's okay, Richard.
Please.
For the gang. I'll also put the link to your Facebook group in the show notes at the bottom.
It's a closed Facebook group, so people's identities and whatnot are protected.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, last 2 questions. All right, I'm going to give you the opportunity. You're sitting down with young 7 to 10-year-old Richard, and you want to give him advice about life. What are you going to tell him?
I would say be your own person. Don't listen to anybody else. If you're different, appreciate that in your identity. Be proud of who you are, and just be comfortable in your own space, and let God guide you.
Absolutely love that, Richard. All right, switch hats. You're now sitting down with young Richard, the young businessman, young entrepreneur, and you want to give him advice about business. What are you going to tell him?
Is this the 7 to 10-year-old or a little bit later on?
Now you're older. Now however old you were, you were dabbling in IT and tech. And yeah, and even those disruptors. What kind of advice would you give him business wise?
Well, the one advice I would give to me is never get comfortable. As a baby boomer, you were taught to kind of like get a career, stick by it, work there, be loyal, and all this stuff. And after getting downsized and right-sized a couple of times, and then obviously, as I mentioned, disrupted later on, be your own business person. Don't expect anyone else to have your back, other than God Almighty. Look for His strength. But be your own advocate. And as you said earlier, look at, I now have an entrepreneurial spirit. I kind of discovered I did not, probably 5 years ago. And it took that transformation and ultimately becoming born again, I think, to really find my true identity. And if you're able to, and for most people, you probably already know what that is. So just stick by it. Don't give it up to somebody else. And once you find that identity, once you find your voice, your true authenticity, be present to how powerful that is. And that's you. And just stay with who you are. Don't worry about what other people have to say. Wayne Dyer, the wonderful health and wellness guy, used to say, why would you let somebody else's opinion of you matter more than your own? Why would you give somebody that kind of power over you? Right. Don't.
That's great. That's something to definitely think about. Absolutely. Well, Richard, I want to thank you for not just coming on, but coming into my life, my friend. Keep being who you are.
A real pleasure.
You're doing some wonderful stuff. So again, keep doing what you're doing.
A real pleasure. And I'm so grateful to you, Drew, for being in your world and being on this wonderful podcast that you do, and how much you give back to the community as well. And God bless you and your son. And can't wait to catch up again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Richard. Everybody out there, please take care of yourselves. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and give us a review to help others find it. I'd like you to answer this question. Are you living the life you want to live, or are you living the life others want you to live? I'd like you to think about that for a second, because I strongly suggest you live the life you want to live. If you want to learn more about what I stand for and my services and how I'm able to help many men get out of their own way, please go to my website at www.profitcompassion.com. Feel free to also email me at drew@profitcompassion.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Take care of yourself and choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you.